Welcome to The Hive Is Alive from Apiary Digital. I'm your host, Tess Berry. As Apiary consultants, we are a fully remote team of experts, typically balancing work with another passion. For today's episode, I spoke with several Apiary consultants about their experiences as a consultant and how they balance their time. Consultants within Apiary, for instance, are balancing consulting with various passions such as family life, traveling full-time, going to school, or a second career path. On this episode, Apiary members share with us their opinions on the benefits and the challenges of consulting, as well as the lessons they've learned. Today we are joined by Apiary consultants Rachel Factor.
Hi, Tess.
Connor Witt.
Hi, Tess.
Morgan Mischler.
Sure, thanks for having me.
And Josh Chang.
Hi, Tess.
To get started, how did each of you get into becoming a consultant?
I worked full-time job for, probably like 8 years or so. It was like the standard 9 to 5, like commute into the office every day. And it's really miserable because it adds, 2.5 hours onto your workday basically. And it was just hard. And like, I always felt I was always working on one website at a time too, which I found really boring. It's really not my style. I've always wanted to do kind of new, cool analytics stuff. And so like, did I learn all this cool stuff? And then I come back and want to implement and they'd say, oh, well, maybe, next quarter and next quarter, next quarter. When we decided to kind of make a change in our lifestyle, we didn't actually know how we were going to make money. We just saved up a bunch of money and said, we're going to travel until we run out of money and then maybe we'll come back to Seattle and get new jobs. So we were expecting to maybe be gone a year with the money we had saved up if we were careful. And we found that about 6 months in, we had clients kind of coming around asking us what's going on with you and are you looking for any work? And so we started just kind of slowly picking things up and it was just right away so great. And on top of it, I was working from like Taiwan or, just somewhere interesting, Korea, I think at the time. And we were starting to pick up work and kind of starting to be your own boss and just really feeling very proud of the work that I was bringing in. People are seeking me out, just me for my skills all the time. And that felt really, really good too. And on top of that, all of the freedom that I was getting, just being able to work when I wanted to, work on the projects I wanted to, work on different websites all the time. It was just all around awesome.
I decided to leave the agency I was working at and pursue my education. So I'm in a school program for art direction now, still in the advertising space, but I was interested in doing the creative side of things. But I wanted to keep a roof over my head while I was doing that. And also just to keep a pulse on what's going on in, I guess, the performance marketing space. Honestly, it made the leap to go take on school a little more reasonable for me, just because I didn't feel like I had to abandon all that I had learned and kind of gained expertise in before. Getting into consulting kind of enabled me to pursue the school avenue I wanted to take as well.
It was sort of a happy accident in some ways, but I was in the agency world for 10 plus years and was getting really burnt out. I have small children at home and I was working full time and I was commuting into San Francisco, which was an hour plus each way. And we actually, as an agency, were looking, we needed some extra resources. So we had reached out to Karen. Karen and I obviously had worked together before in agency world. So it was nice to connect with her. And I thought, oh, wow, like that's pretty cool that she can just like offer resources. But then, I don't know, maybe 4 months later, I got laid off. So I had an 8-month-old baby and a 3-year-old and was looking at, do I want to start working full time again? Do I have to continue this grind? So I reached out to Karen. It was perfect timing. I was really nervous to make the switch to consulting, but being laid off and getting a severance kind of allowed this little safety net financially for me to see, okay, can this really work? And what would this be like? And I just never looked back. I'm balancing 3 kids now. I had two when I started and now have 3. It works out. I have a full project load in my mind and then a full life at home as well.
Yeah, so I was working at a digital marketing agency and was not really loving the full-time life. I think I've always had a passion for cooking and food and the restaurant industry, and have been, at this point last year, was really weighing heavy on my mind to get back into it. And I didn't know exactly how to do that. So I reached out to a friend in the industry, and he just helped me get a job. But unfortunately, as a cook, you don't get paid that much. And so I definitely needed an extra source of income, and one that would allow for me to balance the restaurant hours. Um, I started consulting because hours are flexible, work is flexible, and it just really fit in well with having a full-time job with odd hours.
What are some skills that you've learned as a consultant, especially things that you think you maybe wouldn't have learned this soon or this quickly working full time?
I think time management has been really interesting. I mean, I am essentially working like two jobs. So, like, on my time off, being able to parse out, like, this is time that I am using to do consulting work versus this is my time to actually relax and enjoy my time off. And finding that balance and finding that the line has been interesting. I don't necessarily think that I have it down, or,
I feel like everyone's always trying to learn that,
when I worked full time on salary, I think that it kind of never stops.
It's counterintuitive because you think I work my 8-hour day, and when I'm in the office, I'm working, and when I'm not, I'm not. And when you're consulting, it's just like all time is time. Where does it all go? What do I do? But it really does kind of make you go through that practice, focus
Yeah.
on what time is spent doing what.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think in general, yeah, it just also helps you prioritize life in general, right? Yeah, it's been great.
I just make sure generally to do the stuff I have to do for my consulting work early in the morning the so I'm not having to bounce back and forth between kind of different sides of my mind. I think just being realistic with yourself about how many hours you can realistically handle on the consulting side of things, and then that makes it doable.
Yeah, so I've been traveling for 4 years straight. I started out in Asia and Europe, and then my partner and I bought a motorhome in the US. We traveled a motorhome for a couple of years, and then we came back out into the world again. I actually really love the European time zone because it gives me all day free, and then I get to work in the evening. So I usually get up around like 8 o'clock in the morning and go out for a hike or go out exploring, or if I'm in a city, go city walking, and then come back and work. Maybe around noon or 1 p.m. Around 3 p.m. I'm on phone calls until the evening, till around 10. So it just gives me a lot of, I don't know, I have a lot of energy doing these things, and it's nice.
I mainly work in the morning, and then I pick up after kids are in bed in the later evening, and that works for me. It allows me to obviously be present with my kids and not have to rely on childcare for picking up from school and missing afternoon activities. But yeah, I have to keep the structure pretty tight, or else it doesn't really work with kids. So occasionally I have to say like, no, I can't do that afternoon call, but I can offer morning time. I have to be pretty strict about it because it's obviously not professional to hear children screaming either in the background of an afternoon call. So I like to keep my mornings super productive, and then I get on, for a few hours in the evening as well.
What are some restrictions or limitations that you find working as a consultant as opposed to when you worked full time?
I miss having that face-to-face interaction with your team or your client or whatever it is. Like in-person interaction, I think is helpful. You can pick up on their cues of like things that you can't read just in an email or even sometimes talking over the phone.
Just like challenges, I think, can be the fact that like we're made up of a team of a lot of different time zones and a lot of different schedules, but it is hard to like, when your like counterpart on social is on East Coast or like traveling the globe for reporting. You just like when an email comes through that you've been waiting for, it's like no matter what the time, sometimes I'll find myself just responding because you want to connect with somebody that maybe isn't in your like set time zone or working hours. So that can be a challenge, I think, at times. But we've talked about the benefits obviously greatly outweighing any of those challenges.
Yeah, I mean, like the hardest part is vacation, which like it sounds crazy, like telling you I'm recording this from Montenegro, that I want to go on vacation sometimes. And I think that one's the hardest to explain to clients. Like, I've got 15 different clients and they all have to know when I'm going to be on vacation.
Right.
Of course, people also say things like managing taxes, quarterly taxes, all that stuff, like managing your business structure, your healthcare. All of that is all of a sudden things you realize like your employer was doing for you all along. And now that you have to do.
Yeah, I think when you're at an agency, particularly when you're managing large media spends, all the vendors have an active interest in making sure you're up to date with all the latest and greatest in their technologies. And when you're consulting, I think you have to work a little bit harder to stay on top of all of that.
Right.
You just have to take it upon yourself to be a little more proactive. When you're at the agency, that's kind of brought to your attention.
Right. Fewer catered lunches, that's for sure.
Yes. Which brings me to my next point, fewer catered lunches.
What are some lessons you learned about being an independent consultant versus being a full-time employee? And how did you set expectations with clients as a consultant?
Yeah. I don't know that I could go back to full time. Like, there's your moments where it's like maybe that needs to happen financially or whatever when, because consulting can ebb and flow. And I think riding that wave, especially that first year, was a little nerve wracking, not knowing like, would it things pick up again? Or, like I remember there was a time where like it literally was a perfect storm and I lost 3 clients in a month. Like it was just one of those months.
Yeah.
And it was right after the end of the year. And I was like, oh my gosh. But the thought of like being in an office and all of the things that would have to change in my home life too, it's overwhelming. And to the point where I just don't think that I could ever do it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I've been trying really hard, the last couple of years, especially to present myself as a business. Like I'm a vendor in myself, right? I'm a vendor to Apiary. I'm a vendor to other clients. Like I'm a vendor to the clients that we have. So, I'm not just an individual. I don't work for this company. I'm not forced to do any of this.
Right.
And I try to make that clear without saying it explicitly. Like I'm here because I want to be, because I'm interested in your project and I respect you. And I hope to find the same respect from the people I work with. And of course, I'm very lucky to be at a point in my career where if someone is treating me badly,
Yeah.
I have the luxury to say like, okay, I'm not going to work with you anymore. And that's helped me find a whole new sense of self-worth and respect just for myself, that I think is reflected in my work and that clients feel. And so you'll find that like you work with people all the time or you encounter people all the time who like don't have that, and you see people walk all over them. And I just don't allow that for myself anymore. I think in the very beginning stages of my career, I was like very worried about where my next paycheck was going to come from.
Absolutely.
And people sense that sort of desperation. And when you get to the point where you're not desperate anymore, you can behave in a whole different way, and people respond to you that way.
Yeah, I think being diligent with the tax situation, I had, I guess, technically been a business owner, just in the sense of setting up an LLC for myself previously. But
Kudos.
yeah, I guess that was just a test run for consulting.
Yeah.
Because I definitely never ever made any money from it beforehand, but it was kind of like it made me more familiar with the processes, and that there was just so that helped me a little bit, but it became truly real once I started doing the consulting. So if I can offer some advice here,
Absolutely.
I purchased the TurboTax small business package, which included QuickBooks for the year. And that's a pretty good way to manage expenses, divide up what's business versus personal, and try to stay on top of all that for tax purposes.
you really are doing your own thing. It's very independent. That's a great thing as well, but it is a little bit limiting, and that sometimes you do want the support of maybe your manager or, some like just your team in general. Like, for example, taking time off or something like it. It's both a blessing and a
Yeah,
curse.
you're so right. It's a blessing and a curse. But so is having a boss. So
Oh, yeah, totally. No, exactly. That's why nothing is perfect. I think it's honestly great. And going back to like what I mentioned earlier about time management and just like prioritizing and, recognizing when you're on, and then when you're off, you can like really detach. It's like, it's not easy. And I think it goes into like, it makes me just think about like the whole mentality of like, what work is, right? Like, do we live
yeah,
to work or do we work to live? I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So.
I read a lot of Reddit threads on what other people think. Like,
I
tell me how to live,
absolutely.
Reddit.
Yeah.
Thank you again to our Apiary consultants Josh Chang, Connor Witt, Rachel Factor, and Morgan Mischler for joining us on The Hive is Alive. And thank you to our listeners for joining. If you'd like to share your thoughts and experiences as a consultant, please reach out to us. Follow up with thoughts or questions by emailing us at podcast@apiarydigital.com. Follow and tweet us at Apiary Digital and subscribe to our show. The Hive is Alive is produced by Apiary Digital Media Collective. Editing help from Holly Hilton. Produced by Miguel Bravo, Tess Berry, and Karen Amundson. And we will see you around the water cooler.